Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BrickSide Chat, where we take your questions and turn them into conversations. I'm Paul.
And I'm Evan.
And today we are going to be talking about networking. Not computer networking, but people-to-people networking.
Yes, networking is incredibly important when it comes to, especially I'd say small businesses, actually, when you're first starting up, depending what your industry is, but it's something, a skill that if you pick up when you are small, I think it's something that will continue to move with you through the growth of your business.
Absolutely.
So first, what is networking? Do you want to go over this? You want me to?
Yeah, sure. I can go over it. Networking, really, at the end of the day, is about connecting with other people and being able to creatively leverage their knowledge with your own, and being able to leverage their assets and stuff. And that doesn't mean looking for people to hire, although that can definitely be part of it. What that more means is expanding your periphery, because you have a certain amount of skills, you have a certain amount of resources, etc. And if you network well and you connect with other people, you are going to be able to tap into some of their resources. Now, I'm not saying that people are just going to give you free money. I would be very surprised if they did. But people have all kinds of, not only advice, but just there's all kinds of soft benefits for really getting to know someone that can include everything from preferential hiring to supply to just being able to ask questions of someone far more informed than you. And those really you can't really put a price tag on those kinds of connections. And for us personally, I would say networking is something that has had a profound impact on our business, which we did talk about in the YouTube video. But really, a lot of a company and a lot of a person's worth can also be tied up in the worth of the people that they know.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I think one thing to mention with networking is it's not just going to an event or something and meeting with people at that event. It is very much doing that, but then also remaining in their minds through the use of email or social media interaction, or I guess text or whatever it is, so that you stay in their head and you're like a thought that they might be having, versus just, you could do all this, what you think is great networking if you're at this event or something, we'll say you are, and you meet everyone, you shake 1,000 hands. But those people have also shaken 1,000 hands. Shooken?
We'll go shooken. That's wrong.
They have shooken 1,000 hands, yeah. So because of that, unless you follow up after the fact, the goal is really to remain in someone's mind.
And something to add on to that is everyone else has probably tried to get them onto a mailing list too. So it's two parts. It's being memorable in the first interaction and being memorable in your communication. Right. It's about trying to leave such a strong first impression that you're able to get a more direct channel of communication, at which point it's then easier to stay in someone's mind. Simply trying to get their email to sign them up to a spam list probably is not going to have that huge of an impact. But if you can pitch an interesting story and follow that up later with a text saying, hey, we talked about all of this, and I remember you saying that you were in the same town as I am. Did you want to grab coffee sometime? I mean, that would be a very rare chance of happening.
No, but
something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing where if you pull something in that they had mentioned in one of your conversation, whatever it is, shows that you took that extra step instead of just sending an email that says, hey, it was great talking to you. Here's a link to my product or whatever it is. And going that one step further, which would then make them really remember you, where you say, hey, it was great to catch up with you or to meet you the other day. I heard you mention that you're working to develop this, robotic arm that does something, or whatever you say. Yeah. And then that can lead to a further discussion versus just a one-way, hey, here's a link to something. Yeah. It's now a discussion again after the fact.
New cabinet paint.
Cabinet paint for my cabinet business, yeah. And that's super duper important, I think, is following up after the fact.
It's also another part of networking is having people, a lot of people may be approaching networking in the sense of they want to get hired or they want to get their company hired for something. And going about talking to colleagues versus going about talking to a prospective client is going to be a very different experience. And that's going to really inform how you go about networking as well and what you're trying to get out of it too. So just do keep that in mind. And we'll talk about strategies for networking later, but a lot of the first, I guess, bit of this is going to be really focusing on like colleague or cooperative networking. We will probably dip a little bit into sales stuff later, but there is definitely a very different mindset involved. Absolutely.
There. You're selling yourself versus selling a product, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Where yourself is something that, I guess depending who you are, might be easier to sell. I guess it could be harder, but theoretically, you know yourself, hopefully, incredibly well, better than anyone else. So really, you're the only person who can sell yourself that strongly as you should. Whether if you're selling a product, then it's a little harder, I think, unless you're a really good salesperson, maybe, in which case it's different. But with networking, most of the time you really are selling yourself, and you as that connection might lead to a product later. But generally, you're that thing that you're really pushing, and that could be a service, something you provide, or it's just that contact at this other company now that provides more resources for this person you're talking to.
Yes. And it's also really another big thing that you're selling, and this is going to sound kind of strange, but it's the emotional bond too. Like, people are going to pick someone that they like. At the end, a lot of businesses are going to go with whatever's the most logical, but just being someone who is likable or someone who is able to forge an important emotional impact when you met up is potentially going to be the first one to get the call, which is going to give you another chance to then be able to pitch a lot more about your product or who you are and stuff. So that is also really important. It's not just about swapping business cards, or it's not even just about just staying in contact. It's about being someone that other people want to remain in contact with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're kind of dipping into our next thing now, which is the benefits of networking. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we just went over a little bit, but a big one is really broadening your, I don't want to use the word network, but your perspective and knowledge base based on the people you can now connect with, and providing yourself significantly more resources, whether that is financial resources or product resources or just knowledge resources.
Yeah. And all kinds, there's so many different types of things that can be gleaned through networking that can give you such an advantage, because you might hear about something that's coming up in your industry before that becomes public knowledge to the customers, right? It's going to be way better for you to find out at a convention that a new product is coming out, so that you can, position yourself for it, rather than you finding out because you saw an ad on TV or YouTube or something like that. So there's all those kinds of things that can also come about from networking. For me, though, I think personally one of the best benefits to networking is listening to people's stories. I recently attended a convention which I knew almost nothing about. It was not related to the Lego business at all. I was kind of just tagging along to NAB, which is the National Association of Broadcasters.
Yep.
Hooray, I got it right. Out in Vegas, I was tagging along with Evan and some of his film colleagues. And I know a little bit about film because Evan knows about film and because we were on the YouTube channel, but it's really not, I don't know anything. But going there and listening to people talk was just so insightful, and I can only imagine how insightful it would have been if I knew what they were saying. So
something going back to that too is there's a level of passion that you will watch someone who's explaining their product, and that passion just like fills you up and like encourages you to do something.
It's infectious.
It really is. So like if you go, let's just, if we went to a Lego selling convention or something, I know that's not like a thing in terms of what I mean by this right now, but like, or if we go to a Lego convention in general and there's booths, people selling, and we were there and we got to network with all the people. It's a colossal, just like amazing influx of this passion that you had in you, but now you really want to do something. It's really, why can I not think the word?
Invigorating,
motivating, empowering, almost. Like David was here a few months ago, and I know for David, it was like he was here and him coming here really motivated him to make changes as soon as he went back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, to redo things in his business, because he saw things we were doing. And then when he was here, we saw things, or he found things we were doing that he was like, well, what, you should do it this way. And they're like, so we all of a sudden just being with other people who are passionate about something. And I like the fact that you said, like, you know, you were watching stuff at NAB with people who, for something you didn't know much about, but they knew a lot about it, but you were still interested in hearing their stories and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just like that, watching or listening to someone who's passionate about something creates this feeling for you of like motivation and stuff. So even if the networking doesn't come super strong out of it, like networking in terms of what you did at NAB, probably like nothing, I would assume, right?
I got a discount on a cool backpack.
There you go. But like in terms of like meeting people and stuff, like I went, you know, when I was there, I met up with people who we didn't go with because we like, you know, met them, whatever it was. But for you, it's like you still probably left there with like
some knowledge
of something that maybe you weren't looking for, but it was thrown at you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get this into what was NAB-like episode, but there was just so much stuff there that gave me inspiration for unrelated things.
Exactly.
Too. And it's also just, I mean, really, it is like the passion of when you just hear someone talk about, especially when it is, because even though obviously film is very different than what we do, it was still businessy. And so talking to other people who are running some kind of business, especially there were so many small businesses there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the huge Sony whatever, but there were also so many small businesses, just talking to them and asking, like, there was the desk guy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this guy, he built like the most cool desks ever. But like that's so motivating, because asking him about how he got to where he is, and he was the owner, and he makes desks, like that's so niche.
Makes desks for broadcast, even
yes,
more
desks
niche.
for broadcast. And he was talking about like this custom material on the top, so it's like silky smooth, and then there was one that like reflected sound. It was like so weird, and that helped definitely create like a motivation to get home and think creatively and innovatively. So just because you're not networking with, and if I had networked with him and like, you know, made some kind of a bond or something, which I think we got his business card, but you know, just if you did just go to a random convention and try to network outside of your industry, those are still valuable connections, because certain topics, especially in just general business, are universal. And those are going to be potential assets that you can leverage later. So networking is an ongoing, constant, every interaction you have with a person is to a degree networking. And I think that is definitely something that people should keep in mind. That wasn't really in the outline, but it's definitely important that like every person you meet is a potential asset, and you are a potential asset to them. And you know, figuring out how you can potentially leverage that, you know, is something like, who knows, we might need a desk in here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool. Something with that though too is, you know, I know for me, it took a long time. I still don't do it often because it's not like a thing I really love, but going up to people and introducing yourself and just starting that conversation is awkward. It's really weird. It's not something that's like, it takes a while before it becomes natural for people. But I think people admire that level of almost bravery / I don't even know what word I'm trying to think of, but like that level of
perseverance and willingness to confront things.
Almost, yeah. Courage is the word I was trying to get. That's the word I was looking for. I don't know what you highlighted because it didn't highlight on my screen, just to let you know. But
okay, that would explain why I'm confused as to where you jumped to.
Yeah, but you know, stepping out of your comfort zone is something I think it's difficult for a lot of people. And networking is part of that, where it is difficult. That comfort zone of like taking a step to go talk to someone that you would never talk to because it's weird. You just don't know where that connection is going to lead.
Yeah.
So it could be incredibly important later on in your life. And the more you do it, obviously, the easier it gets and stuff. But it's definitely a hard thing to like get the guts to go do.
As someone who definitely does struggle with some social anxiety, something to keep in mind here is people, I mean, everybody in 2023, most people know that everyone has some degree of social anxiety. And so being willing to like just admit that is potentially going to help increase your worth, because you are going to give them the impression that they're valuable enough for you to overcome your reluctance to come talk to them. Mm-hmm. Like if they know, not that you should be like, oh, I'm so cool because I was really terrified about coming over here. That's not what I mean. Although I guess that could be a great comedic open if that's what you want to do. Yeah. But just like being willing to admit that like, hey, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I didn't really know when to come over. But could I ask you this question? That's potentially going to make them think that this question that you're asking is important enough that you stepped up, which shows two things. One, that they're important, and two, that you're willing to confront things and go above and beyond. And anxiety is something that can be really difficult to move past. So if you're willing to do that, you might also be dedicated, hardworking, willing to confront all kinds of other difficulties and push through them. And that, part of networking, part of just business in general, and all kinds of personal skills is being able to turn your weaknesses into assets. There's always that job interview question, give one weakness. And although it is kind of bad form to give a non-answer to that, but it is really true where like every weakness is actually just an asset that has not yet been mastered. It's something that you need to learn to it's something that you could potentially learn to overcome by devoting resources to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we ready to move to 3?
I wanted to talk about kind of the friendship, and that networking is not just about building. We touched on it's not just about building professional relationships, but another step of networking is being willing to engross yourself in the non-professional side as well. And I think that is an important benefit of networking as well, is you do also gain friends, and you do also gain social, social things. And going out for fun activities is also something that can, definitely be a very important part of networking that can help you build those connections.
Yeah, and like we've built past what I would call a network relationship and more of like a friendship with multiple people within our industry.
Absolutely.
Not only in just over the internet and stuff, but like some of those people we've met in real life and stuff. There's at least 3 or actually 4, maybe 5 if we really stretch it, that I could think of that, we've met in real life through various things.
Yeah.
And didn't just like go look at a store or something. It was like there was social interaction as well. That was like, going out to eat and stuff. And it's you become friends and stuff, which is a big benefit. And it opened, I think, or helped to continue to open more doors within our relationships, in our own network, for us to gather more info or share more info, insights as to how certain things are doing. Like if there's a new way to process a piece, it's like people want to share it with their friends, and
recognize.
Yeah. Tons of things. And that's a great thing that just has come out of us being able to network with people.
And those kinds of semi-professional relationships also might survive your business. If for some reason we lost the Lego shop, I bet that David, Chris, Nikki, et cetera, would all, still be people that we could reach out to. Not that they're going to bail us out. That's not at all what I mean. But I mean, like, because we have gone past professionalism to a certain point, there is still something there that if we wanted to start another business later, maybe we could still somehow leverage that resource, and, just maintain a real friend as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, it is more than just the business relationship. It's a friendship.
So now that we've talked about some of the benefits of networking, how are you actually going to go about it?
Yeah. So this is, and I think in almost it feels like now in every episode we do, the first thing we say is like, you need to make sure you know what you want out of this thing you're working on. But that's the truth with networking too. What is your goal for what you're trying to achieve? Do you like, if you don't have don't scheme and stuff, don't make it weird, but have an idea of what you really want to achieve from reaching out to that person or going up and introducing yourself to that person? Are you looking for employment at this company and you want to get your foot just barely in the door and start talking to someone who can pass you on to someone else and now you have an in? Are you trying to like build up a supply chain for your business? Maybe you're trying to go source something, and meeting this person is going to help you source that a little bit better. Don't just go up and be like, "Hi, I'm in need of like calcium," or like whatever you're sourcing. Sorry, I was thinking fish tank stuff, but what's your goal with it? And maybe you just want to learn about what they do. I think that's like, even for me at NAB, it's like there are some companies you just look at and you're like, and you walk up and it's like, "Hi, what do you do?" Not exactly that, of course, but like that's maybe all you're really interested in. And then you can take that knowledge now of understanding what that person or that industry is and applying that to whether it's relevant to what you're looking for or not. But really have that goal of knowing what you want before you just say hi to someone.
Yeah. And I really think learning about an industry is not to be underestimated. Just walking up and asking someone, "Hey, your sign looked interesting. What do you do?" Yeah, I mean, this is going to depend on the setting. If you go up, if someone has a huge line and you take 20 minutes of their time out of this huge line, that might be a little bit rude. But if they're just on their phone or, it's just like most normal. I mean, we keep talking about conventions because we were just at one, but This also goes to leaving comments on YouTube videos, joining Discord. But I'm going to continue with the convention because it makes sense. If you just like, there are so many booths, not all of them have people. Just walk up. Like there's this company that made cable ties, and I actually did buy some of those. But I was like, I was looking at their sign, and I forget what their name was, but it had nothing to do with cable ties. And I was like, "What do you do?" And he gave me a huge pitch. And I started off with, "Hey, I'm not walking around with a big pocketbook here. I'm just curious, what do you do?" And he still gave me like a whole company history and all that stuff. And I did not know that there was so much about cable ties. And I got a whole bunch of free samples. But learning about an industry, especially if it's an industry you want to get into, like I know conventions are sometimes expensive, but if there is a free one near you, or a very cheap one, I cannot suggest enough. Even if you don't work there now, you just want to get into it, just show up, because I bet you that's more than 90% of people who want to get into an industry do.
Yeah. Paul, you're mentioning like if you're interested in a specific topic, not just a random convention.
Yes. But like if you want to get into hard drive manufacture and you go to a hard drive meetup, I bet you that very few people who aren't already in the industry go there. And I bet you just saying that you're interested is going to be enough for people to remember you, right? And you might make some contacts.
Well, and something else too is, I like, sorry, I have my fish tank on my mind because I'm looking at it and stuff, but like there's a company called Bulk Reef Supply who I purchase stuff from in terms of like materials and things that are needed to take care of the tank. And when it comes to me watching a video of theirs or something where they're doing a warehouse tour or their big office tour or whatever, it's like, even though I am not in that industry at all in terms of the business side of it, I am so carefully looking at like, they're like, "We just got these new racks where we can pack 20 orders at once and this is how it works." And they just show it such a brief thing. And it's like, I have absolutely nothing to do with, I'm a customer in that industry, but I am in no way, shape, or form any part of any of their processes. But little things like that are like, I'm just so curious in terms of even that video of watching them just do a tour of their warehouse, which really their goal is not to help someone like me understand fulfillment better. Their goal is just to show their massive warehouse of products and things. But I can pull so much from that video.
Totally.
And it's like, that's another thing with networking is people that you have no idea about and you talk to them, it's like, a lot of things can be applied to a business.
Yeah.
Even though you don't think it. I mean, some things, of course not, but a lot of it really can, where you pull info and you're like, how do I make this work for me? And all of a sudden it comes up with a much better idea.
Absolutely. There are a lot of YouTubers I watch who aren't business. Like, I mean, obviously they're in a business, but I mean, like they do other things like Chris Broad, who runs like Abroad in Japan. I listened to his podcast and his book's coming out. And on his podcast, he talks a lot about the actual like, his podcast's not really about Japan in a lot of episodes. He's talking about like running his YouTube channel, running the business, the personal struggles that he's gotten through in order to like be the largest like English speaking Japanese like influencer, and like Linus Tech Tips too. We're listening to like the Land Show. He's such a gold mine for business advice, and I'm not in the tech industry, but there's so much stuff that he has talked about in terms of how he manages employees and all these different kinds of ideas that he has for trying to motivate people that are applicable to really anything. And so being willing to go out, ask people questions, and network is really just a gold mine for finding little pieces of information that all connect together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something else when it comes to networking, and something that I think is really good when it comes to kind of determining what you want out of it and stuff, and a good way, like if you're reaching out to someone and you really want, like, let's just say them to reply and answer your questions or like give you an interview or something, you could send an email that just says, "Hi, my name is Evan. I own this company, and here's my question," or whatever. Or you could go about it by doing your research on those people, and not informing them about themselves, but mentioning something, a fact. Like if someone was reaching out to us and they sent me an email and they were like, "Hi, Evan, whatever." I'd probably read the email, probably get back to them. We usually do. However, had they reached out and said, "Hi, Evan and Paul," or whatever, "here's what I'm doing, and I was just talking to David from DNA Bricks, and I was talking to Chris, and I was talking to Doug, and I was talking to," like, you don't need a list of people, but if you bring in anyone else's knowledge and throw that at who you're talking about, then it's like better. If you're
assuming it's true.
Of course. Yeah. But, if you're using someone's product and you're at a convention and you walk up and they have an array of products now, and you just walk up and say, "Wow, I've been using this since it like came out in 2009, all of a sudden you have an instant connection with that person when you really don't. You know what I mean? Like you really
totally
don't, but you've started that conversation and you now have something where you have some not accountability. Well, sort of. Like you are already someone that they look at and they're like, "Oh, you just took one step up on my ring of people I'm going to shake hands with today because you already know what we are. You have a little bit of research." So that's a big one, is definitely just taking the time to kind of know who you're going to go talk to as well. Obviously, you don't always have that, but if you really have that goal of wanting to go reach out to someone with I want to get hired or something, it's really good to have an idea of like looking into a company or something first.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that's on every resume, and there's a difference between just being able to repeat company information that the person who you're interviewing doesn't know either. Like some random fact from the quarterly report, or maybe what their vision statement is. There's a possibility, depending on who you're talking to, that they might not actually recall that, and so slipping it into conversation might not be useful. But instead, being able to talk about something that is maybe more relevant, or talking about the story of the company, or talking about their department even, might be interesting. But you don't want to come across as a stalker and be like,
yeah, you don't want to be a know-it-all either.
Yeah.
Especially if you're incorrect.
Definitely.
You don't want to find a little bit of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know 10% now, and you think you know 90%, and you act like you know 90%, and then it looks bad on you. So
yeah,
take it into account, like to take a little bit of info in, but.
And a good way to phrase that is say, like, "I had read that," and that way, if it's false, they can correct you. And it's true. You probably read it somewhere, right? And that way you're not saying like, "Oh, I know all of this stuff," right? It's, "Hey, here, I had done research. I'm here to learn more."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong, which is another really important thing that shows maturity.
Yeah. And so we're pretty much getting into now, like, you're building an authentic relationship when you're trying to network with someone. You don't want those transactional relationships. Not that those are bad, of course. You go to the store, you buy groceries, you can have that quick transactional relationship and say, "Hi, how are you?" And you have that really, really brief discussion with the person at the checkout counter or lane or whatever. That's not a bad thing. unless that was the manager of the store and you wanted to get a job at the store, in which case you just say, hi, how are you? Pretty good. Okay, thanks. All right, have a good one. That was like a useless, like if that didn't happen, it would change absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you see someone that you want to talk to and you just say, hi, and that's it. It didn't do anything. So you want to try to build an authentic, genuine relationship with them where they know your name, you know their name, they know a fact or two about you, whatever it might be. They know what your business does or what you're searching for, etc.
Something that I do want to throw in here is, especially if this is a dedicated networking event, they are meeting tons of people. And if you follow up later and they maybe look like they're trying to be polite, but maybe they don't actually remember you, just be like, hey, I know you saw a bunch of people, and then just give them a recap. Because the truth is, even if you do have a really good thing that you say, they might have just been tired. So like, don't take it personally if someone does not remember something when you met them once. I think that's definitely, like, don't be disheartened by that, because people have busy days.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to throw that in.
Definitely. And this is something, when you're building that relationship, show the interest in themselves. People really enjoy talking about themselves or their product or whatever they have a good knowledge base on. Mm-hmm. So if you're asking questions and like getting info from them, they're probably, unless they're really dumb questions, they're probably enjoying it and they feel like they're doing their job by providing that info. A big thing is active listening, though. If you're just like, if you have a list of 5 questions, you go your first one and then they say their thing, and then you're like, okay. Then you go to your next one, and you're like, okay. And then you go to your next one. It's like active listening is having that conversation with them. It is supposed to be a conversation, not an interview, usually, when you're talking to people. So definitely you want to listen, and if you have follow-up questions and stuff, it would be really weird if you just went up and just asked your 4 questions and then like left.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a conversation. That's how they are going to remember you too. If you're just going up and you want to answer your 4 questions because you just don't know how something works, that's your goal, and then you can achieve that. Mm-hmm. But most of the time when you're networking, you're trying to form that connection, they need to talk to you too, or you need to talk to each other.
Yeah. And, if they're not thrilled to answer your questions, that might be a red flag to you too. If they don't seem passionate about their work at all, that might, especially we go back to the hiring thing. Do you really want to work for a company where you go to a booth and all of the 5 people there just seem like they want to go home? Like, that might be something that you want to consider. And obviously they might just have a bad day. Maybe their car crashed on the way here and that's why they don't have a colorful sign. But you know what? Be networking. It's about people. Mm-hmm. And it's as much as it's about accomplishing a goal, it's about accomplishing a goal with a people. And so just remember, everyone that you're talking to is a diverse person who has a lot of different factors at play, and reading into that can help get you a better insight about what you want to know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Kind of leading off of this, we've really been talking about the convention type thing.
Yeah. But
let's say, you step into an elevator with someone. And I know this is what it's called, but it's like rarely does it actually happen. But you want to have a good elevator pitch for yourself. If all of a sudden you find yourself in an elevator with someone who you've been wanting to meet forever because of X, Y, and Z reasons, you don't want to blow it. You know what I mean? So Have a good elevator pitch for yourself, which essentially means crafting a concise, compelling introduction, really for who you are and what you do. And I think a really big thing with this is, to a degree, you want to tell a story.
Yeah.
Not like a chronological, in 1904 or 1998 we started this business and then now whatever. Maybe that is a little bit of it, but you want to tell a story, because the truth is connections with people are storytelling. Just from a human perspective, everything is storytelling. So you can list off like, here's what I do. My name's Evan. And that's it. But you can tell a little bit of a story too. And that will get people to remember you and connect with you significantly better.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really have too much to add on to that. Just, if you only have 10 seconds to talk to someone, that is something that you might actually want to rehearse. Like, just have something that you can spit off.
Yeah. And like, don't over refine it, and don't expect that you're going to have all these instances where it's like speed dating for networking or something. I wonder if that's a thing.
I feel like that'd be a really cool pot. We should talk later.
Anyway, rarely are you really only going to have 5 seconds of someone's time.
Yeah.
But you don't want to take up 20 minutes of someone's time to get your point across.
Correct.
Unless it's like a situation where you're sitting down and you're giving a lecture or whatever it might be.
The one thing I do, I guess, want to throw in that is for other people like me who suffer from a lot of social anxiety things, is prepping that ahead of time can definitely eliminate that, because if you only have 5 minutes and it takes you 4 minutes to get your courage up to actually talk to them, that 1 minute needs to be really good. And I'll admit, I messed this up. Some people that I wanted to talk to at NAB, the only people that I actually wanted to have a conversation with were the developers of something called VLC, which is like a media watching program. And I went up and was like, hey, hello, I think your product's cool. And that was it. And, had I been more prepared, that probably wouldn't have happened. So, because really the reason I went up is I had a question about a bug. But that kind of thing of having these things prepared ahead of time, it's not that you need to script it out. It's just like, be able to talk through, because the anxiety will go away after you've been talking for a couple seconds. It's just like, be able to open.
Yeah. So moving on from your elevator pitch, another big thing when it comes to, or another method, I guess, for networking is social media. So we suck at this.
Oh yeah.
Seriously suck at it. But LinkedIn, Twitter, and there's other platforms out there, but LinkedIn is like a really big one now, where that is the business social media thing. And if you can put yourself out there on LinkedIn in the right industries and marketplaces and having the right people see it, it makes you seen without actually maybe having met these people in real life. Social media, obviously, and I think it has been for years now, but that's a big marketplace potentially for that. There are definitely some things you want to do and not do, though. Like you obviously want to express whatever it is you're searching for, but you don't want to come off as non-professional. You don't want to treat it like an Instagram type social media where you're just posting whatever you want. And even that, to a degree is iffy. But you want to treat it, you want to make sure your values line up with, if you're representing a business, that business's values, because that is a professional platform where you're tied to that business that you either work for or own or whatever it might be. So you want to be careful there, but also you want to make sure that whatever employers see on LinkedIn, if you are searching for a job or something, that you're acting in a professional manner and interacting with people in a professional manner.
That said, you don't want to lie, not directly say falsehoods, but you want to make sure that you are being honest about who you are, especially if you're trying to be hired. If you are a fun person who's like the life of the office, and you're never going to be able to change that about yourself, maybe then you can be a little bit more like,
absolutely.
Like that. And it is really important. We talked about this in branding, but there's so many different types of ways to brand your company in terms of your personality. If your company is this laid back surfer dude bro kind of vibe, and that's just how your company is known for, having just headshots and suits and making these occasionally super vague and ambiguous posts is probably going to negatively affect you, because people are expecting you to behave a certain way and you're not behaving.
Yeah, that's true. Keep it within your brand. I'll say brand guidelines to an extent. If your thing acts a certain way, then of course you should follow along with that as well. There are some networking etiquette type things. I think most of these we kind of already went over. Yeah. One of them is following up after an event or something. Not that you have to, but it's usually a thing that gets you one step closer to whatever you're trying to achieve. Obviously, you want to be respectful and communicative. But going back to that surfer thing, there's a level of professionalism, but if it's you had an example earlier, but it's like a convention for...
I was saying like a surf convention at the beach.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone's demoing their boards that they made or whatever. Right? And everyone's walking around, in board shorts with a drink. right?
Right. You don't want to be that guy who's the only one dressed up in a full suit and everything
at the beach. Yeah.
At the beach, because it just doesn't fit for the thing. So obviously you want to make sure that fits there. Like you fit in with whatever the event or the theme of that industry is, if that makes sense. Really, the thing here though is like, at the end of the day, just be there if you can. You know, in terms of networking, like that's the biggest thing. Is just if you're active in the industry, whether that's actually at a place with physical people, or if it's online, or if it's on social media, or if it's just around your neighborhood in terms of the stores, the other local stores that if you own a cabinet shop and you just talk to the other cabinet makers who are in your county or something, that's being part of networking. It's a very vast web of different levels of which you can consider networking. I think our last little thing here is overcoming networking challenges. This is, I think it's a very common thing, especially when you're younger, not necessarily age-wise, but younger in the age of where you feel like networking is important. If you started this at 10 years old, obviously you'll be great by the time you're 15. But if you start this at 40, it's like, okay, it's still going to take you a few years. Just because you're older doesn't mean you naturally have it. Because I think it's super common to feel uncomfortable reaching out to someone, really about almost anything, especially in a professional setting where it's a network or a business type thing, and maybe you're trying to ask for them to do something for you. Because like to an extent, that's usually what it is. They're either providing you info, maybe they're going to get you a job opportunity, maybe you're asking to demo a product. It's usually them providing you with something. So that's a hard thing to kind of overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd already touched on being willing to admit that you're nervous, but like, especially, I mean, with me is once I admit that like, hey, like admit like verbally that I'm nervous or whatever, it's just kind of, it disappears very rapidly at that. Because honestly, I think a lot of times what people build up is they at first they're nervous about talking to someone, but then they become nervous about being nervous. And like that's, I think, at least for me personally, where I really get stuck in it is I'm nervous about being nervous. And once you admit it, a lot of that goes away, right?
Yeah, I remember in high school and earlier on probably, whenever I had like a speech or something to give in front of a class, it's like I was always really nervous. And eventually I learned to when I would then announce, maybe not to the class, that'd be weird, but like to someone or whatever that I'm nervous, it's like all of a sudden you realize like something drops off your shoulders. Not the whole thing, but part of it, just the fact that you've mentioned and said I'm nervous to someone else makes it like, oh, I'm okay, I guess. It's really weird. But just admitting you're nervous or you're scared to do something helps a lot in overcoming that.
And if you're particularly business minded, this is especially going to apply more to entrepreneurs or business owners rather than people looking to get hired. But like, you're always looking at everything in the entrepreneurial mindset as reward, gain, threat. You're going through this whole analysis with every decision that you make. And what you should be looking at this is you're networking here for your business. This really is not any different than any other nerve-wracking decision that you've had to make over the years. It really isn't. It's just a different asset, right? There's no difference between this and any other decision where you've had to lay it out. So look at the positives and the gains. And this goes also the other way of, if you're so certain that you're going to mess this up, then maybe wait till next time, right? You can bail out, but a lot of it is like, eventually you're looking at the gains, you're logicking it out, and you're like, okay, what's actually the risk factor here? I look dumb and everyone laughs, and then, okay, I just don't go to this convention again. I talk to someone else, right? It's the actual loss there is potentially very small. So view this as a challenge or an investment or an opportunity for something that you can overcome on a budget sheet, really. This is just something that you're investing. And at the end of the day, like everything in business, there comes a moment where you just have to make the decision. Am I going to do it or am I not? And often, even though you've done all the statistics, ran all the numbers, at the end of the day, you just make a call. And this is one of those things where it's like, am I going to get up there or am I not? And then you stop thinking and you just either turn around or you go up there. One of the two.
Yeah, totally. And as a business owner and stuff, it's like that is the, to a degree what the business owner does. It's like, I'm really scared, but this is for the business, or this I know will lead to this later. So it's like, okay, to a degree, you just have to get over your fear and just do it. Yeah.
And the truth is, you don't have to get over your fear. You just have to do it. Like, you can still be terrified while you're doing it. There are so many decisions that I've made about this business where I am anxious and nervous about it all the way until even after it's happened. Not necessarily like social stuff, but just calls that we've had to make. So, you don't have to feel perfect to do something. It's no different than having to work a super late shift because this thing has to get done, and then you feel awful and tired, but you still got to just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully this is helpful to those of you out there who maybe are looking to network a little bit more, or just wanted an idea, or didn't even want this, but you listened to it anyway.
Yeah. And if you're looking to get started with networking, and you happen to be well, I really messed that up. You happen to be in the BrickLink, mind space, or just really associated with our channel in any way, go ahead and join our Discord. There are lots of people there that you can network with.
That's true.
Mostly Lego stuff, but we're always interested to having people who found this podcast and have general business questions, because like we've talked about this whole time, so many concepts are universal. So if you're watching this on YouTube or you're on a podcasting platform, please feel free to go check out the opposite platform. And go ahead and join our Discord. If you are on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you are on a podcasting platform, follow, whatever that may be.
Yeah, whatever you can do over there. And leaving a review helps as well.
It definitely does. Please feel free to leave any kind of questions and ideas if there's any topics you want us to talk about in a future episode.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching or listening to this episode of the BrickSide Chat Podcast. We will see you in the next episode.
Bye.